I'm Andy Algreen, Realtor with Keller Williams, and in this video I'm going to go through what my typical conversation looks like with the buyers so that you can understand what I'm looking for when it comes to purchasing a home, what it kind of looks like to work together side by side, and trying to help you make the right decision and to be able to put you in the right position to purchase a home. First step in the process is to figure out how we are going to be purchasing the home. Are we going to be using cash or are we going to finance the home? First option, if we're going to be using cash, then we will want to provide a proof of funds document showing that you have the funds to be able to purchase the home. And that proof of funds document would be submitted with the purchase agreement and any other supplemental documents that would be submitted when you find a home that you want to put an offer in on. Second option would be to do your traditional bank financing and take out a mortgage on the home that you're purchasing. So I highly recommend using local banks here in Iowa, assuming that you're purchasing this home in Iowa, and not necessarily going with the bigger banks, for example, like Wells Fargo, Rocket Mortgage, just kind of those bigger banks, because they don't necessarily fully understand Iowa's abstracting process. And I guess just to give you a quick example, I bought a duplex 2 years ago and we used Rocket Mortgage at the time, and they essentially just delayed closing for us about 3 weeks because they didn't fully understand what the abstracting process was in Iowa. That was just my situation, and that's why I highly recommend using a local lender here in Iowa. And I do have a list of lenders that I can send you that I work with personally on a day-to-day basis. So that would be the second option, is using the traditional bank financing. So once you find a local bank here in Iowa that you want to work with, that's when you would essentially apply for a mortgage to be able to get pre-qualified in order to get a pre-approval letter. So the point of all that, to get a pre-approval letter, is that pre-approval letter will get sent with your purchase agreement. And when you have that pre-approval letter submitted with the purchase agreement, it essentially shows that you've done your due diligence on the back end, you have the financing in place, you're ready to buy this home, and you're ready to go. It essentially just makes your offer looks stronger. Another thing about the pre-approval letter is I personally, this is just kind of how I do business, I will not show any houses until you have that pre-approval letter in hand, essentially because we want to figure out what your monthly investment is going to be, your monthly payment, and or how much you can afford as far as total mortgage. So that's basically going to save time on both of our ends, because we don't want to go start looking at houses in the $300,000 range when maybe you can only afford in the $200,000 range. Or it could be the other way around, where maybe you can afford a $300,000 house, but initially you only thought you could afford a $200,000 house. So basically, it's just going to save time up front for the both of us. So the next step in the process, and you might have already done this prior to seeing this video, but is figuring out exactly what you want in a home. Just kind of narrowing down the criteria that you need in a home to be able to live in and purchase. So I kind of like to break it down into 3 different categories: your must-haves, nice-to-haves, and then your like dream things that you would want to have. So your must-haves, kind of pretty straightforward, but those are the things that you must have in a home to be able to purchase it. So say, for example, a lot of this kind of comes down to lifestyle, but say you are growing as a family and you need a 3rd bedroom. So you need a minimum of 3 beds. Next thing, possibly location, figuring out where exactly you want to purchase the home. Do you need a yard? Does it need to be fenced in? You know, just asking yourself questions similar to that to figure out your exact criteria. And that's something we can kind of talk about as well, just to help you kind of narrow it down. I'll try to help you with that. The second thing is the nice to haves. So these are the things that would be nice to have in a home, but they're not the deal breakers. So basically, for example, if you have a home that hits all of your must-haves, and then it also has some nice to-haves in there, then it's basically just kind of a little bonus. And the third step is the dream items that you might want to have in a home. And this is kind of where you can dream a little bit bigger. These aren't features that you necessarily need, but if you find a home that meets all of your must-haves, maybe has some of your nice-to-haves, and also has some of like your dream items that are on your list, then it's definitely a contender and a home that we definitely should go tour. So figuring out what your must-haves are, what things you would like to have in a home, and then what kind of would be your dream things to have in a home are definitely some things to think about. And it also kind of depends on what price point you're buying in, because you could be buying in a price point that has everything that's going to come with it, or a price point that has like nothing that's going to come with it. So for example, everything under 200K might not come with a 3-car garage, but if you're looking at homes that are $500,000 plus, those houses are most likely going to come with a 3-car garage. So kind of figuring out where your price point is and narrowing down your must-haves based on the price point. The point of doing this is so we can be more aligned in the process, and I'll be able to help you better to figure out exactly what you're looking for. So the next step in the process for us would be to start searching for a home. And what I'm going to do is set you up on an MLS filter based on the criteria that you have given me. So whatever criteria you have given me, I basically will input it into our MLS website, set you up on an automatic filter. What this filter is going to do is basically it's going to send you automatic emails when a home comes on the market that meets your exact criteria. So from my side, this is very important because I am also working with multiple buyers to be able to use this resource to have it automatically send you emails that has houses that fit your criteria exactly, and you'll see them, and I will get an email as well that comes in. But again, I'm working with multiple buyers, so I just like to make sure that we both get them. So if you see something that comes on the market that meets your criteria, you want to go look at it, definitely shoot me a text or an email and say, hey, can we go look at this home? It meets my criteria, and yeah, I want to go look at it, and I want to go look at it. So once you do find a home that you want to go put an offer in on, one thing that I'm going to do is to help you understand roughly what the value is worth versus the listing price by running a comparative market analysis on that property. This will essentially just help you by giving you more facts about the property. Is it underpriced? Is it overpriced? Is it right at market value based on the current data that I'm seeing? At the end of the day, purchasing a home can be stressful. I'm trying to set expectations up front and to make this process as enjoyable and hopefully stress-free as possible. So after you submit your offer, the sellers are basically going to have 3 things that they can do. They can either just fully accept it, and that's when you would go under contract. They can flat out just reject your offer, or they can counter. Typically, what you're going to see is a counter by a seller, and then it's on. That's where negotiations kind of start. That's when we'll move into the next phase of the process. After your offer does get accepted, it's typically going to be between 30 and 60 days, depending on if you're paying cash or if you're financing. I typically like to do a 45-day closing, depending on the bank that I'm working with. That just varies. A lot of variables kind of in that situation and time frame that can kind of affect things. But on average, 45-day close, and in between that 45-day close, things are going to happen. The rest of the questions that you might have, we can handle in person. But I just wanted to give you an update on how I work with my clients and how I kind of try to set expectations up front and try to make the transaction and process just as smooth as possible. Thanks.